Work as an RN in Australia. So that's me. With my career, at one point I even wanted to become a prime minister, for God's sake. Absolutamente sukan. You can come in and you can excel over here. Then this place has so much women in residency. The path towards that is quite amazing as well. And thank you once again for having me. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Hello everyone, this is Ritik and today is the first day of our active show. And the guest today here is Luna. Luna is a nurse. Luna, can you introduce yourself briefly?
Well, so hi everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Luna. I work as an RN in Australia. So that's me.
Tell me where were you born and
Okay.
tell me your background.
Okay, so I'm Nepalese. I was born in Nepal and in the capital, Kathmandu. New Baneswar to be more specific. And I came to Australia when I was 17. So I was still a minor, so I wasn't allowed to stay with my uncle because he was not my blood-related uncle. So I had to stay with a homestay Australian family for couple of months until I turned 18. So once I was 18, I moved with my uncle, and from there I stayed with them for about 3.5 years and then carried my journey forward and started living by myself. And here I am today doing a podcast.
So today in this podcast, we're going to hear about Luna's experience and journey from Nepal to here as a nurse. Without further ado, let's start with the podcast. All right, Luna. So tell me what inspired you to become a nurse, or what made you get into this journey of becoming a nurse?
Well, initially I had lots of things in my mind that I wanted to go into corporate section or I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 6 years old, and something drastic happened and changed. We'll talk about that in a different podcast. But then a lot of things happened that switched my attention from corporate to the service sector, and that's when in 2012 in Nepal's earthquake, I was there and I was helping with this NGO. And then when I went to the places where people were actually really suffering and lots of things were scarce, so I actually thought to myself then that I want to go towards service sector rather than a corporate sector. So at that time, I had my tonsillectomy, removal of my tonsils, and then I was admitted to a hospital for about 5 to 6 days. Ironically, little did I know that I was going to have my journey led from there to nursing. So I had few nurses and doctors looking after me over my stay. At that time is where I kind of felt that I want to do something in medical, something in health. So that was one of a turning point as well. And then the other one was my uncle who lived here. He used to talk to my mum and dad quite often. He did say that nursing was really good in Australia for multiple reasons. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do. So when I spoke to my uncle, he was able to change my mind to some extent. So I think there were multiple factors that made me choose nursing instead of something else.
Did you ever realize that you wanted to be a nurse, or was it just the circumstances
Oh,
that made you?
absolutely not. So when I was doing my high school, year 11 and year 12, I never even studied science. So I come from sole management background. So with management background, I thought I would be going into accounting, like I mentioned earlier. But then, long story short, I came to Australia. I started studying nursing. First year, I did my foundation because that was a prerequisite for the nursing because I didn't have any science background. So for that reason, I had to do my prerequisite for a year. When I did that, I actually started falling in love with nursing. I actually got to know what nursing was like, what things that I did not like, but I was eventually able to overcome those. But then there were, out of 100%, there were 90% that I really loved about nursing, and 10 were things that I wish that I never had done, like cleaning up poop. But other than that, most of the things I actually really enjoy nursing.
Was it hard for you to shift from management background to nursing? Because I'm from science background, and Well, because I'm from science background, I
Yeah.
already had knowledge, or let's say because I already did biology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it might be harder for you to switch from management to nursing.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. I still remember living with my uncle. He has 2 kids, and his older daughter, who I'm very close with, she used to love science, and now she's doing medical. So she was the one that actually helped me stay up until late night doing my assignments and teaching me with like basic human anatomy, which I had already forgotten from like year 10. So she was 3 years, she still is 3 years younger than me. But then she actually helped me a lot to overcome things that I couldn't really ask in class, because I thought it was really stupid for me to even ask how many chambers were there in a heart, and that was like a basic thing to know, which I did not, unfortunately. So my cousin played a very big role in helping me really overcome those first year, and then I actually managed to get a groove after my first year.
That's great. Tell me why specifically you chose Australia for your further study. Do you had another plans as well, or you specifically wanted to come to Australia? Tell us more about that.
Well, personally, I didn't really have any particular choices, like I mentioned earlier, because I was very confused with my career. At one point, I even wanted to become a prime minister, for God's sake.
Well, that's great. That's good. That's
thank God.
career to have.
And then I wanted to be a fashion designer, and then I wanted to be a model, and then I wanted to get into acting, and I would have totally sucked at that. And then there were a lot of other things that I wanted to get into, but well, after I had my tonsils removed, at that point I had already given my law exam at Kathmandu University, and also at India, one of the universities there. But then because of my tonsillectomy, I wasn't able to attend to interviews and a lot of other things. So they were not really okay to make an exception, even though I was undergoing this surgery. So long story short, that actually bummed me over, and that was like a bummer. So I thought, okay, law is not for me. So after really eradicating a lot of choices, I came down to nursing, and also because my uncle was here, and then I think that played a very big role. Although I've got 2 brothers, they live in the USA, they were quite inclined for me to come and stay with them and then study something there. But I don't know why, ever since I was little, every time I thought about the USA, it made me kind of sad and very gloomy and very dark thoughts that I used to have. But every time I thought about Australia, it was more like a happy place with the lovely beaches and beers and like a really happy place, I would just say.
What made you think that way? Was it because of the experience that your friends had before, or just a thing that you had in your mind?
Well, I think mostly because in America, I've had a couple of friends, and one of my brother had a gunpoint as well, and that was kind of scary and traumatizing for every one of us. And I think ever since I was little, I've been hearing these horror stories about the USA. And on the other hand, with Australia, my uncle used to sing Australia like it's a lullaby in a very nice way, saying that Australia is so amazing and it's great. And I think that was one of the reasons that I was inclined more towards Australia than towards the USA. Other than that, there's no other specific reason.
How long have you been here in Australia?
It's about more than 7.5 years, I would say.
Are you loving it here, or like
Well,
how do you feel?
They have got their ups and downs. I do love certain things about Australia, like the roads, the sky, people, the culture, and the way they are so humble and so civilized. I think I love that part about Australia. But on the other hand, I do miss my family. I do miss the culture that I grew up in. I do miss the food mostly. And of course, I miss my mom and dad and everyone around me. So there has been like multiple ups and downs with my almost, let's say, 80s journey. But overall, I do love Australia, but I do not think I see myself settling in Australia over a lifetime period.
Why is that? Where do you have that feeling?
Well, I think bottom line, Well, infrastructures and roads and buildings are there, yes, great. But then bottom line is family. So I think I will be going where my family would be. And my dad is very spiritual and loves his country and is so not willing to leave country for any other thing. So I think I would rather go and stay with my mom and dad and do something in Nepal.
Yeah, a lot of the times I feel like a lot of the people that come here as a student, they have a dream of bringing their parents here, settling them down here, making a family of their own here. Have you tried convincing them to come here and settle here, or like they don't want to come here? What's the plan?
I wouldn't try to convince them. They're an adult. They can make the choices themselves. All I can do is encourage them. But me myself, I don't want to settle here, so I wouldn't want to convince them to come in and settle here or have a permanent resident or have a permanent residency or be a permanent resident. So I personally think like the freedom that you have in Nepal, where you've got, well, this is a very wrong way to put it in, but people working for you even at your home. You don't really have to do your dishes if you don't want to. You can hire someone to do it for you. I'm so sorry if that comes out as very wrong statement, but it's just my personal opinion. And I do think, like, personally, I would love to have someone do those things for me, living my life like a queen. And with the resources I do have, and my mom and dad will have, or they have, I think we can afford that life. And I wouldn't want to come here and really struggle with all these little basic things where we can have a decent life back home in Nepal, being close to everyone that are really our family and friends and everyone.
Well, that's great. Even me myself, I feel like the best thing to do in Australia is to study, make your career.
Yeah.
But the best thing for you to do is to go back to your own country, settle down there, because that gives you happiness. If you're close to your family, if you're close to your relatives, that's the most happiest thing that you ever get with your life. So that's great to hear from you. So moving forward, tell me, what were your biggest challenges coming here, and not only in a personal way, but also in a professional way as a nurse? Like, what were your biggest challenges here in Australia?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me was to study science coming from a management background, not being able to understand even a basic thing. And I feel really stupid and dumb for quite some time, not just for a month or so, but it was for like a elongated period. And I did feel that I had to work 10 times more harder than everyone else, because I did not really belong to that background. And people constantly made sure that I felt that way, that I did not belong to nursing. So I did have a couple of hiccups and a couple of obstacles there. So I think that was one of my biggest challenge in nursing professionally. Personally, I have been quite blessed with my getting to live with my uncle. Didn't really have to do any groceries or didn't really have to pay any rent. And my mom and dad were generous enough to help me with my fees, and also they were kind enough to send me my pocket money when I would run out of them. Because when I came to Australia, I didn't really work for 9 months because I couldn't find any job, although I was looking for it desperately. But when I did find a job, the first job for me was to split the chickens into half, get the shrimps out, take the lobsters out. And me being a vegetarian, I can't even tolerate eggs. That job was really challenging for me. And every day when I had to split the chickens into half, I felt like really crying and going back home, because I never thought ever in my dreams that I had to do such a thing, coming from this family where mom and dad would spoil you for everything. Never did I ever do a single dishes, and then he coming and cutting chicken into half was something personally that was very challenging for me. But other than that, I feel like I've been blessed in multiple ways, and I've been very lucky to be born in a family with great mom and dad.
Normally those people who come here in Australia are from a background where their parents or their family couldn't support them here, like in their fees or in any of those things. Rather, a lot of the people I've seen, they do send their money back to Nepal to support their family. Do you think it's bad or it's good? Have you had any friends with you that had different background, and how you felt about the situation or how you felt about them? Do you want to share those experiences if you had some?
Well, I don't really particularly put it as different background or so, but I did have a lot of friends who had commitments back home. They had to get some loan off the bank to come in to study, or even had to get the loan for like one-way tickets, and they were the only source of income for their family. I do not feel it's a bad thing or good thing, because it's certain circumstances that you can't really avoid, and it's not really in your hands. But I do feel that because I've seen a lot of my friends working triple shift, like from morning till next morning, 24-hour shift, just to support back home, and they're also studying alongside, and that has affected them mentally and physically so much, and
Yeah.
more likely mentally, because I've had a friend who wanted to send lots of money back home because her mom and dad wanted to make a home, and they wouldn't understand that his fees were quite important, but would rather want him to send money to make like 5-story house, which was unnecessary, he thought. And then he tried to explain to his mom and dad, but then his mom and dad were instead like, no, you have to send me money back here, because your neighbor, they're making already 6-story and we have to make 5 stories. So it was more like a competition rather than like, I just need a shelter over my head. So that focus had already shifted from a basic living to showing off and extravagant living. So
Do you think it has been a toxic culture, not only in Nepalese culture, but in Asian culture? Do you think that's a toxic culture where parents, they especially send their children to study, but then they start, like asking their kids for things that are beyond their reach, or like they couldn't focus on their study? All of the people here, I feel like they have been depressed, or they have been they haven't been happy with all kind of stuff. They have to do triple shifts and everything and else, which is obviously very hard. So do you feel that it has been a toxic culture where this has particularly had a very bad effect on the students' mind here from Asian backgrounds, from Nepalese culture?
well, I do think to some extent yes, because if your mom and dad, they've sent you with all this loan, and your mom and dad, they do not have any more capacity to pay the interest of the loan, then yes, it is your responsibility to help mom and dad back home, send the money to pay the interest, and for basic shelter, food, and clothes, yes. But I think more than that, when it comes more like a competition towards with their neighbors or with their relatives, or more like they're pressurizing your children because they don't understand their point of view. Because a poor kid, imagine a 17 years old coming, living home, they're he by themselves, they've just turned 18, let's say, because in Australia minor you still need someone to accompany you, but they're 18 and they have $30,000 fee per year. They have to pay about $20,000 rent per year. That's like $50,000 of expenses already, without including the cost of eating, cost of traveling. There are like a lot of things that has to come into account. But even with just that, it's already 50K. So imagine a person coming to Australia and not having any support from family, and instead supporting family, it's a very difficult thing to really do. And I feel like sometimes parents, they don't really understand where they should. They're here to study, they're not here to earn money and study and send back home. Yes, if your family cannot support you, I do suggest applying at different country where they do offer scholarships, where you can actually study for free, or you can actually get 80% scholarship. But unlike in Australia, where there is very limited opportunities for scholarship, that does put a lot of pressure on one's head, and that has caused lots of mental health issues for especially like early 20s kids are already taking antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication because they're so anxious, they're already so depressed. They even some were in worst case scenario, they do have suicidal thoughts. And we've had lots of international students, like literally they're found death with suicidal notes, and that's the pressure that they couldn't take it from back home. They couldn't really pay off their fees. They were swarmed in debt, but instead family wanted more and more. So when is actually enough? So I think that's for family to.
Do you feel like because of this toxic culture in our society, a lot of the times, even the people here, even the students here, all the children that they come over here in Australia, because they have been surrounded with relatives and so much people in back in their country, I feel like they can't even voice out their opinions. They can't even talk to their parents. Where if they are in a situation where they can't send money home, even if like those parents they ask their children or the student who have come here to send the money, they'll probably say they have money. They'll probably say like they have money or they have money to send back, even though they do not have the money. Do you think it's a toxic culture that has been here? Like, what do you think about this?
I think like.
Do you think like they need to voice out more in regards to this situation, because instead of just keeping quiet about their hardships, because it is creating them to go to or be more depressed or in a situation where they can't talk to other people. So what do you think about this?
I do think that mom and dad should be your safe space where you shouldn't lie about anything. There are a lot of circumstances in life where you have white lies and bad lies and God knows what more lies. But mom and dad, they should be a place where you come clean, where you can share exactly how you're feeling without being feared of being judged by the parents or by relatives or anyone. First place, having to lie with your family and lying them about how much you have or how much you don't. Sometimes you might be lying because you don't want them to stress out about you. But if you're in a situation where you are really, really, really depressed, you feel like, okay, I can't do it anymore. This is it. I've done enough. I've reached out my max and then I need to just take a chill pill. If you feel that in a way, then I think you should be able to talk to your mom and dad. But if you feel that, okay, I still don't want to stress my mom and dad out, I still should keep going, I still have to do everything, I still have to prove it to my relatives, I still have to show amazing things to my family. If you have that pressure in you, then I think that's not really healthy. I think that's where all the toxicity are just accumulated. So it's good to let it out if you have got someone to talk to, because at one point when you look back in your life you will realize that it was not worth it.
Tell me, how did you overcome those challenges? Did you had someone with you that helped you to overcome those challenges, or you did it by yourself?
Well, by myself is a very modest term. I would never say by myself, because I had lots and lots of help from my uncle and from my family back home. Well, with the challenges professionally that I mentioned, I had my cousin who helped me go through like everything that I had studied in the class. I'd come home, she would stay up with me, she would even proofread whatever I've written, and she would just help me professionally wise. She would help me with those things. That gave me a lot of confidence when I used to have her around. When it comes to personal challenges, my mom and dad, because when I was little, I used to be quite unwell and I had to go back and forth to the hospital and home, and I had to miss a lot of schools, and there were a lot of things, a lot of complicated things happened when I was little. Given that circumstances, every time I used to be overworked, or every time I used to feel very much pressurized, I used to get this unusual chills and fevers. So my mom and dad, they were very concerned that even if I were to come here and I were to overstress myself, overwork, I might end up getting unwell, and they were just extremely worried about that. So every single time I felt that, okay, I don't think this job is working out for me, or I don't think I'm doing enough, but I don't think I'm getting enough appreciation. So every time I would tell these things to my mom and dad, they always encouraged me to move forward, look for something better, rather don't stick where your mental health is not really regarded. So, and I had that benefit. Thankfully, I had that benefit where I could just lay back for 5-6 months, look for a different job, and then my mom and dad could support me at that point. So every personal story, it's different. Mine's different than yours, and yours different than mine. And that's different with like every individual that comes from Nepal to Australia, or Australia to Nepal. So for me, that worked, and that might not work for everyone, but that's exactly, having a good support system from family and friends worked the best for me.
You know, sometimes I feel like more than relatives that you have here in Australia, the strange friends or the friends that you meet occasionally, they help you the most rather than the relatives. In the case of my situation, when I first came in Australia, I never felt that someone would support me. I was like, in my mind, I was like, look, whatever happens, I'm going to come to Australia. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I never thought someone would support me, you know, in whatever situation it would be. But when I first came here, I had my cousin sister over here, and you know, I had came here with blank mind. I was like, you know, whatever happens, I'm gonna go through it. But then when I first met my cousin sister, I wasn't expecting that, you know, like she would help me or help me go through a lot of the situation that I've been here in Australia. You know, whenever you come here in the beginning, like all the place you want to stay or the grocery that you want to do, all those kind of stuffs. I feel like that has been like an unexpected thing to me as well. So when I first came here, I had my cousin sister. I was with her for like 3 months, where a lot of the times she helped me to get through like groceries or rent and stuff like that, where I could find my job myself. I shouldn't worry about that, and I never expected that. I never expected that, and that's a situation where you're surprised because you are like you came here with a blank mind. You thought like no one would support you. It's a place where like everyone would think about yourself, but it's surprising that sometimes a person that's not close to you would support you more than someone that's close to you. So what do you feel about that? Have you had that instances where like someone would have supported you more even if they were not a relative or like they were just a friend?
Well, in my circumstances, I think it was a little bit different than yours, because like I mentioned earlier, I used to live with my uncle and I had my auntie as well, and I do have lots of relatives here in Australia from my mum's and dad's side. So every time I felt that I needed something, I was always approached by my uncle or by my auntie, and thankfully I never had to leave.
Well, did you expected that? Like because
because when I came here, I did think I was only going to stay with my uncle and auntie for a couple of months until I would find a place. But then I got so comfortable, they got so comfortable, and I lived there for almost 3.5 years. And after 3.5 years passed, and I looked back and I was like, okay, never mind, it's time for me to move out and do things on my own, because I've already had enough help from them, and it's time for me to start getting a little bit more independent than how I was. So that kicked in. So even with my fees, my uncle used to pay everything from his credit card, and my dad used to transfer him the money, and that's how they used to settle the whole thing. So even for my fees, even till date, I still don't have a credit card, and I think that's a good thing for me in a way. So I did have my uncle and auntie do that for me. So never did I ever expect, because when I came here, my mum and dad and we were having a conversation as to how we were going to pay our fees, because Nepal Rashtra Bank, only the central bank of Nepal, only lets you like take certain amount to pay off. So we really didn't know how we could do it, but then thankfully we had.
That's great. What do you find most fulfilling in your career? Like, what is the most fulfilling thing that you feel like you've achieved as a nurse? Could you share some instances about that?
There are lots actually, because I am working in an aged care and I work at the hospital as well. But I do feel working in aged care, you build this connection with older people, and when you see them smile at the end of the day, they're having a rough day, and then they're waiting for you to start your shift. So when you go in and they all know you and they're so eager to see you, and when you go in and greet them, and the way they jump, and they've saved even like home baked cookies or biscuits or even something so that you would come and you'd eat their share. I think that's the most amazing thing, the love that I receive and the blessing that I get from all the residents.
Do you think that's the most rewarding section for you? Like
absolutely,
receiving love from elder people?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, sometimes when your patient is, especially in the hospital, when your patient is acutely unwell, and then you do everything in your hand to make sure that the patient stabilizes, and then the patient is better from the day you looked at and then the end day. So until they stay, if they've gotten even better by even a little, that's very rewarding as well. So on the UK, if they've gotten better and they feel even like 2% better than how they were feeling yesterday, or that's for the hospital thing. But for me in an aged care, it's when you build this connection with the patients and then they're so welcoming and they can't wait for you to come in and start your shift. And that's...
Do you feel that the core skill of becoming a nurse is a sympathy? Like to have a sympathy with to other people, you know, like that. Do you think that's a core skill?
I think that's one of the skill. I wouldn't just say it's only sympathy, but there are a lot of aspects. But that's one of the aspects.
Because I feel like I've seen and heard a lot of the things from you yourself as well, and I feel like a lot of the times it's the sympathy that drives you to work or give more to the patients, you know, because a lot of the times because because nursing is a demanded career here in Australia, a lot of young people who come here to study, they come here to study for a wrong reason as well, you know, because so that they have good. Everyone wants to have a good career. They want to have a good career as well, but a lot of times they want to be in a position as a nurse because they would have a good career, they would have a good pathway to a PR or all those kind of things. And I feel like because of those situations, a lot of the times they end up risking patients, you know, they end up risking a life of elderly people because they're more focused in the career and less focused in a service that they can provide towards patients or things like that. Do you feel like that's that has been the case in the past few years? That has that been a case? Like because I think you have heard as well. A lot of times you heard in news, you heard it in a lot of you know like YouTube videos or a lot of stuff like that. That someone hit the elderly people, someone throw stuffs to them because and caused a lot of things to them. Do you feel that is a problem going on right now?
I wouldn't say problem going on right now. I think this has been ongoing. People get into wrong field for different reasons, and they might have the right reasons to get in, but the field is wrong. So I do believe with nursing, yes, we've had multiple instances where we've made the news, Nepalese nurses being abusive towards patients and hitting and throwing things and causing bruises and everything. We've heard multiple news regarding those. I do think money is a very important factor, and nursing is very rewarding here in Australia. It is very rewarding even in other countries, but in Asian country like Nepal and India, nursing is not as rewarding as it is here. So I think for those reasons, when people come here and then they see the amount of money that they get hourly, it's kind of crazy for them to not get into it. So they do think, yes, okay, let's go, let's make money, let's print some cashes and that's it. But once they know how it works, because you have to shower the patient, you have to clean their poop, you have to change their pad, you have to feed them, and you have to deal with all kind of behaviors, and there is a lot of things. Although you're trained and you get the training, but at the end of the day, you're still a human being. One can only tolerate so much. So I do feel that if you don't have your heart and soul to this career, then yes, money is a good thing. It's just a means to have a good quality of life, but rather do something else rather than risking your life and risking your patient's life and causing a lot of troubles. Yeah. I
feel like if you are in a career like nursing, or if you want to be a doctor or like in a health field, I feel like if you don't have sympathy in yourself and you're just there to have a good career, then it's not a good career for you, because you'll end up playing with lives of other people, especially elderly people who are in a verge of like a disease, or who are in a verge of getting severely like bed bound or stuff like that. You can't play with your life and stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're just solely there for a career purpose, then it's not the right career for you. You need to have that sympathy in yourself. You need to be able to care people as well.
I feel like some people, they develop this thing over time. Like once they start working, they know what's expected out of them, and then they kind of get the groove of hold, they kind of get a group of the nursing and how it works. So I think once they get the hold of the nursing itself, they kind of start developing their sympathy because they see patient dying every day. They see like patient getting better, patient not getting better at all. So I think it kind of drives some people to be more sympathetic, even though they are not initially. But then I've had multiple instances where people like colleagues, they're really good to the patient. They're like amazing, but once they're out of the job, they've clocked out, and you see their face where they're like, okay, I don't even want to see your face anymore. So although they've put that happy face, they've put that lovely face in front of the patient, that's amazing. Like whatever your personal life is, it doesn't matter, because when you come to work, you leave your personal baggage outside the door, and then you just enter and you just walk in and try to put a smile 24/7, although that's not possible always, but still that's the best desired for one person to be at their optimum level. So I think that's rather than coming to work and be like, okay, I don't want to see your face. Okay, you go and change your pad yourself. You go and have a shower yourself, and then you're so nice to your fellow colleagues. So it's hard to keep a balance, unfortunately, if you're faking until you're making it. But if it comes naturally, this is definitely for you.
That's great. So tell me, did your cultural background had any effect on your career as a Nepalese in Australia? You not only meet with Australian people, but you meet with other backgrounds as well. Did your Nepalese background have any effect on those particular instances?
Well, if it was towards caring the patient, I think back home in Nepal, we live with our grandparents until the end of their life, and we don't really leave them alone. The culture here is very different compared to Nepal, because here people, they want to be independent even up until their 90s, and they don't really want their kids to come around and live with them. So they want to really grow apart after one age. Although they live close by, they help with shoppings and showerings and cleaning the house, the kids. But then the parents, they still want to live separately from their kids, and they want their kids to enjoy their life. They want their kids to have a different life than theirs, rather than just looking after themselves. And they would rather go to aged care, because once they feel like, okay, I think I'm going to be a burden and I can't look after myself, they'd rather go to an aged care, live their life there happily, make friends in an aged care, and then just continue with their end of life till the end.
Do you think it's a good culture here in Australia?
I can't really comment on good or bad, but what I feel is it's about your safety. If you're not safe living at home alone and you don't have anyone to look after you, and you've got dementia, or you've just had a fall where your vision are compromised, or there's no one to even come and give you some water because you're fractured your hip or for whatever reason. So at those instances, I do feel that aged care is really good for you. Because you can go to an aged care, there are nurses looking after you. They'll make sure that you take your medicine on time. They'll make sure that you have 3 meals, like 3 breakfast, lunch and dinner. And in between you have morning tea, afternoon tea, you have still supper after dinner. So there are like 5 or 6 courses that you're having, rather than sometimes staying at home and living by yourself. You might not be able to eat even one course of meal because of your limitation to walk, or your limitation to like get the groceries out of the store. So there are a lot of circumstances. But having said that, I still do miss the factor where back home in Nepal, we have mom and dad, your grandparents living with you, where there's always this harmony, always this culture growing up with your grandparents. You're just so much closer. You get love from everywhere, from everyone. And you're looking after them until the end of their life. You're there to support them. So I do think they both have their drawbacks, and they both have their positive aspects as well. But I do believe that in Nepal, like now, almost every household, the kids are migrating to different countries. So I do feel that aged care in Nepal in 10 years would be something to think about, because every population, they're getting older.
Do you think Nepal would move in same phase as Australia did, or like America did in the case of aged cares and everything else that's going to grow in Nepal? Do you think it's going to move to westernization? What do you think about that?
I wouldn't say it's only Western culture aged care. I think it's, as I mentioned, it's more about safety. And this is, well, I personally think that the rate of Nepalese people coming out of the country to study, migrating to different countries. If that rate were to continue, the way it's growing right now, then absolutely it would be mandatory, because it's only mom and dad living at home. All the children, they're out of the country. They're living in the US or the UK, Australia. They're living in Europe. They're living in like so many different countries to achieve something, to be something, to make their career successful or have plenty of money, to have a quality of life for whatever reason. And it's only poor mom and dad, they're living back home. So, and the population, they're not getting any younger. They're getting older every single day. So if you do think about that, then when they're getting older, in about next 10 to 20 years, most of them will be on their 70s and 80s. That's when lots of disease will start kicking in, unfortunately, even it's not really in your hand. Although you can take all this precaution by being active, or having this gym, or yoga, or eating healthy, or there are a lot of good choices that you can make, or right choices that you can make, but still it's not inevitable. So you can't really halt those diseases. So I think in about nearly 10 or 20 years, I do think that if this rate were to continue and kids don't want to move back home to Nepal, then aged care will be a necessity.
Also, in related to the nutrition or the also in related to nutrition and health aspects, not only in Nepal but also in Australia or all over the world, do you feel like health depends upon your nutrition, about what you eat, about how fit are you, about how much fitness that you are in, or like how much activities that you do, how active you are with yourself in a lot of this kind of situation, if you sleep well, if you like have a good schedule, if you have good food to eat, if you go to gym, all these aspects, do you think it eventually affects how you live in the future?
I think like those aspects are the contributing factor to making a good quality of life. Having good food, having a good sleep cycle, having this adequate exercises, I do think they are the keys to achieving your optimum health. Having said that, yes, there are lots of genetic disposition as well that can't really be eradicated. So they're still there in the play, but
do you think it would minimize those genetic impacts if you follow good nutrition, good diet?
100%. Like when you are when you're keeping yourself healthy, when you're eating clean, eating healthy, and you're doing everything you can for your body to be in the shape where you've desired to, I do believe that things can be minimized, definitely.
Also, according to recent data, 1 in 3 Australians are obese. Like they suffer with like diabetes, obesity, and a lot of other stuff, health stuff. Heart stroke, that's a very big disease as well. So what do you feel about that? Like obesity, the cause of obesity mostly is bad nutrition, or like lack of fitness activities, or lack of you being active. What do you feel like? What do you think about that situation? Have you faced any obese people in your aged care, in hospitals that you have been? What's the experience in there?
We do have bariatric patients, and unfortunately it's not by choice, it's the disease that's causing them, with lots of fats and tissues dispersed through their bodies and limbs. But some, it's by a choice that they make constantly. We do have few patients, unfortunately for them, like even to really sit out of bed or even to sit up from the chair, it's very challenging. It's physically challenging, and even for them to bend over to pick up a little pen or even a little biscuit that they have dropped, it's impossible because their stomach is in the way, their thigh is in the way, and it's very difficult for them. They do have shortness of breath, and there are so many complications that comes along with being obese, and there's so much complication that comes with the obesity. And I do feel that if you were to look after yourself, if you were to keep yourself in discipline, and I do feel consistency is the key. So if you were to be consistent with your gym,
Nutrition.
your exercises, your nutrition, your sleep cycle, with with your water drinking as well. Dehydration is one of the biggest cause of like acne and everything as well, which I'm facing right now, unfortunately. Yeah, I think those little things, they do matter and make such a big difference in your later life. You might not know now, you might not notice now, but later in your life, you are definitely going to feel the difference.
Yeah, even I feel like it's very important for you to take care of your health now, because if you say tomorrow, if you want to go gym tomorrow, if you want to take care of your nutrition tomorrow is when you suffer. Like tomorrow never comes, and tomorrow is when you suffer. So I feel like the time for you to take care of your nutrition, the time for you to take care of gym, the time for you to be active is now. What message do you want to give to the immigrants or the people who come here to be an aspiring nurse?
I feel like nothing is impossible if you have got your heart and your soul to it. So if you are coming here with the purpose of serving, or and even while you're serving, it's still equally rewarding with the money that you get, and the permanent residency, the path towards that is quite amazing as well. And
yes, congratulations for your permanent residency.
Thanks.
How do you feel?
Oh, nothing to brag about, but thanks. I wouldn't say it was a very rough journey for me, unlike a lot of other accounting or IT, where they have to move to regionals and they have to go through a lot of things to get a permanent residency. However, in my case, being a nurse, that actually gave me a lot more potential and points for me to get my permanent residency from New South Wales, and he from the city itself. So I don't think too much of sweat went into that, but still at the end of the day, there was something that I think every individual, once they come here, they do want to have that future security. So that was good. Moving back to your question about the suggestion to the Nepalese coming here, I do feel if you feel that you have the resource and you can come in and you can excel over here, then this place has so much potential. Sky is your limit. So come here, get your things done, smash everything, and it would be amazing. I do feel like all the Nepalese and all the Asian people, or any immigrants coming from any part of the world to Australia, if you've got your heart and soul, then definitely go for it. I would suggest you to come when you're young. Some people, they have different idea than I have, because they do say that you can come once you're mature enough and you have seen the world, you've grown enough, you've done a few jobs back home, and then you've come here in order to get your more experience and you can get a more professional job. Yes, that's true in one part, but then for me, I personally would suggest, if you are thinking about coming abroad to study further, then come when you're young. Come as early as you can, so that you can start rolling. You'll start knowing people, you'll start knowing the places. Yes, struggle is real. You might end up struggling a little bit more than 25 years older you, but definitely there's a lot to learn. There's lots of gravels on the road, but you're gonna pick those as you walk forward. So that's my suggestion. And also, if your family can support you with the resource, then definitely do not ever hesitate to ask, because you might be thinking that's their only savings for their retirement and everything. But once you do study and get a very good job that you've always dreamt of, you can always fund back the retirement money that they had. You can always support them back. And if your mom and dad, they don't have the resource and they're still trying to put each and every penny they have for you to come to a different country like Australia and study, then respect that. At least if you can, then pay the interest amount that you can, if your family can't fund. If they're even struggling for basic living, I do think that it's better you support them. So except for the basic living fund, I think it's important for you to voice out and let your family and your parents know your circumstances or what you're really going through here, rather than saying yes to everything and killing yourself over here mentally and physically in order to fulfill all those dreams and your wishes your parents have. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, yes, 100%, but once you're financially stable, once you've completed your studies, you don't have that financial load onto your head, then definitely go towards fulfilling your family's dream, building them the home that they've always dreamt of, or buying them a car, or paying off all the loans that they've always taken out to pursue your studies. So I do think those things are important. And this is just my opinion, so please do not take it personally. I know every individual, they do think differently, so this is just my personal opinion.
So Luna, tell me, how important is it for you to maintain your health? How important health is for you?
Well, health is very important for me. I went to Nepal back in March 2023, and I stayed there for about 6 to 8 months because I was unwell and my mom and dad did not really let me come back to Australia. And I had colitis in my stomach. So because of that, I lost about 10 kilos in about 2 months span. So that was very difficult for me at that time, and I'm still dealing with the acne. But then my face was much worse than how it is right now. Some people still argue that this is worse, but you haven't seen the worst of this phase. So I do think your health is your number one priority. When I felt unwell and I had to go to the hospital every single day for my blood test and for like a billion other follow-ups, I felt that I wanted to go back to my normal self where I could eat everything, I could do everything, and I used to be so weak on my legs that I used to feel that I want to walk again, I want to run again like I used to. So now that I hit my rock bottom at that point when I was back home in Nepal, now for me my health is my number one priority. I still have to work on my posture, unfortunately. I'm still very slouched, and I tend to really be too comfortable when I'm sitting down. But there are a few things that I still gotta work on. I still gotta look after. But health is number one priority for every individuals at this. For me, at least, it's very important.
Even I feel like as an immigrant, apart from all the things that you do, I think it's very important for you to maintain your health as well. Because if your health is good, then everything will be good. And if you don't maintain your health, your work will suffer. By any chance, if your health suffers and you have to go to your own country, that's a lot of expenses for you as well. So I feel like even as an immigrant, you need to take care of your health. If it means for you to go to gym, go to gym. If it means for you to take personal training classes, or if it means for you to be, active regardless at your home, it's very important for you to take care of your health.
Yeah, I do think it's not just for immigrants, but it's basically for every individual. Maybe more for immigrants because you don't have your mom and dad to care for you immediately. You don't have your relatives to come run down to you and just even offer you water. But I think it's more for like every individual, but mostly so for immigrants.
Yes, yeah. Because a lot of the times they don't take care of their health. They're like, they say they don't have time they say they don't have time to take care of their health because of the work, because of the pressure that they're going through college and everything else.
Yeah.
And because it's expensive as well, they're not very lean towards the health aspects.
Yeah.
But you need to take care of your health.
100%,
it's very important.
Yeah.
So Luna, after all the experience you had regarding your health, you have joined Active recently. How has that experience been? Have you had improvement in your health, nutrition, and all the schedule that you had around your work?
Well, for me, I actually came to you guys to increase my weight because I was sitting around 49, and then now I'm about 55 kilos. So I've gained like 6 kilos with my diet plan and with all these exercises and workouts that we're doing and all these sleep cycles and all the routine that you've made out for me. It's actually going quite good, and I believe, as I mentioned earlier, consistency is the key. So unfortunately, given my work and schedule, like you know yourself, I haven't really been able to be consistent from past couple of weeks. Prior to that, yes, we did quite amazing. We smashed out the workouts and we've done quite amazing. But I think this last 2 weeks has been quite challenging and quite hectic for me, given my work and other things personal things that are going alongside. I actually am more conscious on what I should be eating and what I should be avoiding. And because of the diet plan that Active has laid out, I've actually been able to stick to it 75%, I would say. I haven't really been able to do 100%, unfortunately. But even 75% has been a very good thing for me at this stage. So I think joining Active has been quite a good thing for me, because because when I went back home to Nepal, we ended up spending thousands and thousands of dollars just for the treatment. But even if you were to sum up the gym cost or the personal trainer cost at the end of the year, you would not really pay that much money than you're paying for your treatment. So it's good to have a personal trainer or gym buddy or a place to work out, so that you actually can avoid those things and have a diet plan and then take it from there, so that you can get your desired body, so that you can get whatever your personal or individualized plan is to just achieve those.
Also, I feel like a lot of the times, like people, they are not wanting to do personal training or classes because it's expensive and stuff like that. But, at least when you take those kind of classes, you're bound to go. You're bound to be disciplined, because you have spent your money. So you don't want to let that go in vain and everything else. So you want to be disciplined. You want to, that makes you disciplined. And eventually, if you are disciplined, it will reflect on your health for you to be healthy. If you don't take care of your health now, if you are not disciplined, then what happens? So eventually, you'll end up spending a lot more money later in the future, because you'll be suffering with a lot of diseases, as I told before. So it's very important to act now, rather than to think about I'm gonna get this and then I'm gonna take care of my health later. You need to take care of your health now. So very important for you to get there. Don't care about anything else, because health is the priority. And if your health is good, health is wealth.
Yeah, I think that too. I agree with you 100%. How much money is too much money to spend on health?
Yeah.
So spend your money wisely, because that's where everything lies. Your health, if you've got a good health, that's when you can go and make more wealth.
Yeah. All right, Luna, thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your story. It's very valuable for all the audience that will be watching this show. So I'm really thankful for you. You have anything to say?
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad that I could share this story and reach it out to as many people as they've watched. I don't know how many people are going to watch this, but to whoever's watching this. And thank you once again for having me. Thank you.
No worries. All right.